Good morning, and this is the crypto day morning for today's date, in that of Wednesday, the 16th of January 2019. All bets trades of the like. That is within each's own risk reward. Take a look at Bitcoin, some altcoins. No hockey play tonight, but I do have an interesting play I like in the association in hoops for tonight. I'll go over the analysis on one game. So without further ado, let's get started. So since the move, there has been this correctionary level, resistance, support. It obviously is still in that sideways range, hanging in at the lower end for now several days, this being the fifth, sixth since this red day. As again, hanging in there right here, so it's resisting where it used to support, and it's not breaking down its newly established support, not breaking out of this established resistance that was support before. So another way of saying that not much really is going on, and just like any other range bound market, when you break a key level, you have to expect a decent size move from that point on. So breaking this support, this is the level, and it might be, if anything, best odds for short-term support, which means it doesn't go up much or maybe does a little bit of sideways. Definitely an area I'd be concerned with to make a matching low if it comes down here. And that's the key word, if, or sometimes or oftentimes if you're looking to make a play in any way of it going down, I like to first see confirmation or the price action barely and noticeably below a key level and noticeably above a target level. And then that can give you a decent size way to look at your risk reward and evaluate entry positions. But until it breaks that support, it's still at the bottom end of the range. If it's able to have any decent size rally when these markets go, I mean, they can go up so fast, and they usually go sideways on the short term after that's the case. So therefore, going up, you'd have to make a move, you think, to this upper end of resistance. It could usually in a range bound market, you're going to find some if it makes a rally up towards here. But just like in this, if it breaks this support, it's going to have a decent leg lower. This could have a very decent leg higher on a break of this resistance. So therefore, as we stay in this, it's just going to remain neutral. And until then, well, that is basically it. And on the single hour time frame, I find this to be relatively interesting on, or since this down move, as we can see, pretty much this is the trend going up amongst that rate of ascent, and many of the days really did stay within it, especially at the start. Then you had this little brief period, 2 candles down, 1 candle up, and then back doing its thing. Then this one recently having a establishment break of this level of resistance, coming back within the band. It very easily could be ready to have a decent sized move because of it, but for now, I mean, I'm just going to let it play as it is, and I just find the last several periods on the hourly interesting, which is why I wanted to show such. Now moving on to altcoins, and I just had one of those moments realizing, okay, I guess Ethereum's down, because these are the crosses that I trade against Ethereum. The classic EOS, Omizgos, SNT, 0x, Mana, Qtum, Steam, Lisk, GNT, and Loom. And well, every single one of them are up 5%, 3, 4, 17, 9, 8, 3, 16. They're all up. And I just sold this at 24 on ZRX. But they're all up. And I even just recently ended up selling some Steam before that. So I've had 2 sell orders already. Steam's up 16%. And again, this just tells me that Ethereum's down. But let's just first take a look at this this one here. This is the ZRX that I just sold up 9%. And I'll show the cross against Bitcoin, which has managed to make a move on the daily term time frame up 5.28% to the 18 average of highs. Nice little move, short term. It's just now getting going, as it's had this level of resistance get taken out, coming up in here back to where it came from, and then this short-term level of resistance obviously taken down as well. So nice little move within such. The move on the longer term of 18 daily, therefore it's a spot you'd be a little cautious. Do we have any type of topping action? But if we don't, meaning you don't get resistance where you're supposed to, you can have a decent sized leg towards the upside. Steam, on the other hand, against Bitcoin, up about 10 and 2/3 or 10 and 3/5 of a percent. And since this last decline move ending in the middle of December, resistance established, and this area more so after hits here. Therefore, this is test number 3 of getting above the 18 average. For every time I state getting above, I need to see it hold, make a higher low on key levels. But the 18 average, that's always going to be what I'm going to see it need to hold, which it did here. And it did so again in here. Therefore, doing what it's supposed to do, and the more likely that resistance levels get tested, the more likely it is that it gets taken out. If you start to see some decent size gains on heavy volume, and right now today's volume just past the halfway point is already as big as yesterday's and the day before. But if you see some big volume coming in on this, then we could be poised for a really decent size breakout as we move forward within this market. If we take a look at this on the short term, this thing has had a nice little move towards the upside. And like any of this stuff, or the key areas that it came back to, this is in here. So if it barely gets above it, I kind of want to see it hold here. If this really has a good move, then I'd want to see it hold this on any pullbacks thereafter. But it's already broken above this resistance. It should usually have a better leg than this, but price is going to do what it's going to do. And this move may not be over as we look at this on the single hour. Just some decent size overall moves, and it's still nicely above it. So it's not uncommon to have a nice move like this, go a bit sideways, and then further the gains. I still think there's a decent chance that as we finish off the morning, this should make a new high. I mean, that doesn't mean it's guaranteed, definitely not guaranteed, but I think it's a decent chance regardless anyway. And moving on to Ethereum, it's actually not down today. It's just all the coins are going up that I have crossed against Ethereum, which is quite odd and interesting. Ethereum's up 0.6% against Bitcoin today. And the Fibonacci of 38.2%, it has been congesting, chopping above and below for the past several days now. On the single hour term time frame, just the big moves over and over. The down one on January 13th, and then again the next day the up move, and then this down move on January 15th. And now this interesting even move is in here, the big rally, pullback. Just a lot of big choppy action overall. And as it goes for me, this becomes relatively simple, that this thing, once it's done, this congestion area, I'd either expect it to pierce below 0.03 and maybe go down to like the 288-ish handle, 291. And who knows if it's going to go lower, but this would be the next area of support. I would just think that it's got a better chance of going down a bit below, especially because it did before as well. And if it ends up passing this support test, then I'm going to be first looking for a play at about the 18 average of highs, maybe a small pierce above. That's at the 0.037-ish so handle. And then breaking out above that, you're talking about a high chance of getting to or breaking out above the previous resistance at the 41. And then on the weekly term time frame, this thing has monstrous reward potential on the break of this resistance, on the reversal of trend, as I've stated before. When this thing gets above the 18 average after a significant down move, these things can go significantly. So if that's the case, don't be surprised for such. And like always, whenever you're attempting to do something significant, like make a reversal of trend, and you quote unquote fail, meaning 18 lows give in, this Fibonacci low fails, then you expect a decent size leg. Multiple support tested here at around the 270 handle. So therefore, having to move to like 15, 11, 8, and those are some significant losses, 13, 14, or losing half of its value from the 30, losing 30, 40% from in here would not be that much of a surprise. But until then, the market is still trying to do its statement that it's stating, and that is to revert the trend. The band has flattened out. The resistance has been established. The 18 barely starting to rise again. And then now I'm just going to let the market do what it does, because it can oftentimes take a decent amount of time, especially when I'm looking at the weekly for such an event here. Okay, continuing on next, let's take a look at Loopring. In at 1,310 Satoshi against Bitcoin, has in today's session broken out above this resistance area. The lower end would be about 1163. The upper end, the first one would be at 1238, so it's gotten past that. Then we have this upper resistance area, which it has managed to get up to. This twice hit area from early December. Yesterday's volume was really big. Today is even bigger as it breaks out. Now huge on pullbacks for it to hold this general area here around 1166. If, and that's the key word, if this move is over. Breaking this level of resistance, you'd have to think at least you're going to go in towards a decent leg higher, this around a 61.8% fib, obviously piercing above, so maybe a 2/3 retracement. And this little previous support area of around 1,600 and change. If, of course, it's able to, and I don't think there's enough data really to look at the weekly on this. This is a relatively new chart. So I'm just going to go back to the daily and just scroll back. It's getting above this. You got a lot of this empty space from the big decline of the summer. But for now, that next target area is its previous autumn resistance. Looking at this on a short-term time frame, it's this thing, of course, having a nice little break. We can see just how nice the 18 average in here, as you can see, starting to rise, and then, of course, just magnificent moves. And 1 hour time frame is having its move right now. So it could easily have already topped. It's got to have its correction at some point. And let's move on. Here's the status network on the 60-minute time frame, having a decent sized move over the last several hours. Over that of the daily, we had this established level of resistance from before at about the 500 or so area, or we can say the between 517 up to 540, but that's where it came back down to after it broke this leg higher, and now having a very nice break going north of the 18 average of highs. So therefore, the potential for this on the weekly chart, this is a declining 18. It's just flattening out. That's stage one, and it would be completing stage one, moving into stage two, which is establishing level of resistance. And I would like to see at least in the area of in the 700s area, and going up to 1,000 would not be much of a surprise if it's able on the daily chart to get above this level of resistance. And let's finish this off now with sports and analysis on one hoops NBA game for the association, which will have the San Antonio Spurs moving into Dallas to take on the Dallas Mavericks. We have a spread where the Mavericks are favored by a point, and the over-under is sitting in there at 217.5. San Antonio comes into the game with a record of 25-20, and they're 7-14 on the road. Dallas comes into the game with a record of 20-23, and they're 16-5 at home. Major differential on the home and road records, because if San Antonio is 7-14 on the road with this record in here, that means they must have an 18-6 home record. So they're really, really good at home and pretty bad on the road. And to an even more extreme case for Dallas with the 16-5 home record, which means it's 4-18 on the road. Looking at this just a little bit further, looking at Dallas's recent home games, they played Golden State as 5.5-point favorites. Or underdogs rather. They lost, but they covered by 0.5 point. Phoenix 104-94 is an 11-point favorite. They didn't cover, but they won by 10, and it was only 1 point differential. Lakers 7.5-point favorite. And the Lakers are turning it on a little bit better right now. 107-97, and I think this was without LeBron James, given only 3 games ago. OKC home games go for them, but OKC, they win on 105-103. They're beating Russell Westbrook as 2.5-point dogs. New Orleans, they win 122-119. Sacramento lost 113-120, and Atlanta 114-107, which would have been 107-114, I would presume. But regardless of the fact, in here, 3 wins and 4 losses in their last 7. But before then, just a huge winning streak, beating Orlando, Houston, Portland, Boston, Brooklyn, Golden State, Utah, OKC, and Washington. And that's 12-4, both straight up and against the spread. Average score 111-103. For San Antonio, their recent home games, OKC, or recent road games, by the way. This is wrong. This is wrong. OKC, they are losers 122-112 as a 6-point underdog. Memphis 96-86. Detroit 119-107 winner. Clippers 122-111. They are victorious against Denver 102-99. Against Houston, they lose. Orlando, they win. And then mostly losses. Lakers lose. Utah lose. Minnesota lose. Beating Chicago by 1. That's not impressive. Milwaukee, they're losing to 6, and that's definitely excusable. And they did cover that spread as well. Indiana, they won by 11. New Orleans, they lost. Clippers, they lost. Phoenix, they lost. Sacramento and Miami there. Statistically, 5-13 runs straight up. 6-11-1 against the spread with an average score differential of 4 2/3 on the downside. This spread is only 1 point, so you're pretty much taking the winner of this game. I'm playing the Dallas Mavericks, laying 1. As far as injuries are concerned, there's only one real significant name at this point, and that is Rudy Gay for the San Antonio Spurs. So that's definitely more of an advantage than disadvantage, but it's really small. And I think the spread of this game probably should be closer to 4. So I'm going to lay the 1 point on the Dallas Mavericks. Thank you for tuning in, and have yourself a magnificent day. Bye-bye.